Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. We go live every Monday for the season now, a change from Tuesday. So Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to be a part of the next mailbag, come hang out with us next week. But let's get into our first question coming in via Super Chat from Joshua Miller. Get Harrison Bryant back for a late round pick. So as I film right now on Monday, the Browns are likely without David Njoku's services for a few more weeks. At least this week, it seems like, against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which leaves just one tight end, Jordan Akins. They have two tight ends on their practice squad, so one, if not both of those guys, will get elevated to the active 53-man roster. But I would expect the Browns, if Njoku's expected to miss a serious amount of time, to explore some trade targets. And Harrison Bryant is an excellent option. He knows the offense, or he knows at least some of the offense. I mean, Stefanski's still here, even with the Dorsey changes. He's going to know it probably better than anyone else would at this point. And I know the Browns are a fan of Bryant. He kept him for all 4 years early on before he walked in free agency to the Raiders. But that was before they drafted Brock Bowers. And so with Bowers and Michael Mayer there, they probably don't need Harrison Bryant as much as they initially thought when they signed him. So I'm down for trading for Harrison Bryant if Njoku's going to go on IR and miss 4 weeks. Cool guy called Zone. What say we panic week 5 if we aren't above 500? All right, well, let me just read off the Browns schedule here, because they do, and I don't want to say have an easy schedule, because right now the teams that are playing the Browns look at the Browns as an easier schedule opponent, but they got the Jags this upcoming week on the road. Then they're home against the Giants. Then they're at the Raiders, at the Commanders, at the Eagles. So they play the Jags, who lost, Giants, who lost, Raiders, who lost, Commanders, who lost. Your next 4 opponents are all at the moment 0-1. So it could be a lot worse than that. If you are saying that after the Commanders game, they are not 3-2, yeah, I'd panic, because that's kind of the easier part of your schedule. And then it's going to get a lot tougher. So if they do not come out of the next 4 games, 3-1, I would be concerned. Gassed up Shrek. Do you think that play calling seemed identical to the loss of Houston in January? The thing I didn't get is they brought in Ken Dorsey to involve more pre-snap motion. The Browns in week 1 didn't just rank towards the bottom in pre-snap motion. They ranked dead last, 12%. The next lowest was the Broncos at like 21%. It wasn't even close. They were basically in their own tier of lack of pre-snap motion. So I am with you that, I haven't seen a major change from the Ken Dorsey addition offensively. I do think that we're going to see a limitation on the deep throws, and that it's going to be a little bit more of a, this sounds bad, but dink and dunk offense. That's somewhat what we saw in training camp, and that's what we saw a lot of from Watson in his few completions against the Cowboys. But I don't understand why you brought Dorsey here to help with pre-snap motion if you're just going to rank 32nd in pre-snap motion in week 1. Hey, it's Nash. What's going on, Nash? I know it's kind of a far thought, but wouldn't it be smart to at least try Kareem Hunt again this year, or at least give him a workout to see if he's in shape? I mean, you saw what you had in him 2 years ago, and it looked like he was sort of heading towards the end. Now you're looking at what you have in him after 2023, and there was nothing left on the bone. I mean, you want to have Kareem Hunt come back for the next 3 weeks? The goal is that Nick Chubb is back after his 4-week, injury status on the PUP list. But I don't think there's much left for Kareem Hunt in the NFL. He looked slow to me last year. He looked slow to me 2 years ago. I mean, the only reason why he came back last year, and probably the only reason why he put in the NFL period, was because Nick Chubb got hurt. So I know Kareem Hunt, a Northeast Ohio guy, went to Toledo, a Browns fan himself, and he had some good years with the Browns. But to me, I feel like it is way overdue to kind of move on from Kareem Hunt. Now, we have more questions to get to on today's mailbag, but today's show is sponsored by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. One thing I really like about Game Time is they're all in pricing option. Toggling this feature shows you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. Now, terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Kathy, next one up on the show. Will they fire or get new or better offensive linemen? I mean, they definitely miss Bill Callahan. They're not firing Andy Dickerson. That's not happening after week one. I think the plan and the strategy is wait for Jack Conklin and for Jed Wills to return. I don't think Jed Wills' stock could be any higher right now, and he's not even playing. Like, he is showing how valuable he is to this team while sitting in the trainer's office. But yeah, I don't think there is anyone from the street coming in to save the day. The only guys that can save the day are Conklin and Wills, and hopefully they are back as soon as possible. Now, I will say, going back to your question, Kathy, there is one thing that's kind of creeping up from the back of my head to the front of my head, which is the Browns draft the last 2-3 years is kind of catching up to them. Not having a first-round pick for 3 straight years is starting to show a little bit. You go back 4 months ago to April. Mike Hall, first pick. I mean, who knows when we're going to get him back from the commissioner's list. But that was an opportunity to go get an offensive tackle. But when you don't pick until 54, you have to make a decision. You can't have defensive tackle and offensive tackle at a high level. So you got to pick one. And the Browns probably made the wrong decision. Like, Mike Hall may go out and have a great career, but as of now, they sure could have used an offensive tackle in round 2, which almost all my mock drafts had the Browns going offensive tackle in round 2. But unfortunately, they can't cover all their bases when you don't have a first-round pick. And then you go back to the year before that, right? What did the Browns do with their first few picks? Cedric Tillman, Siaka Ika. Siaka Ika's out of the league right now. I don't think he's even on someone's practice squad. And Cedric Tillman, well, I do love him because he went to Tennessee. He is unfortunately not producing, and he's not been an effective member of this offense. So then you go back the year before that, Martin Emerson, great pick. But then you've got Perrion Winfrey off the team. Cade York off the team. Like, think about the last couple of drafts. DeJuan Jones, I accidentally glossed over. Jones, a starter. Jerome Ford, a starter-ish. But when Nick Chubb returns, he's not a starter. And then Martin Emerson. Alex Wright was a good pick. You've got like 3 guys that have been valuable to this team the last 3 drafts. That is just not sustainable. You got to get more out of your draft picks. And right now it's starting to catch up to the Browns. And while it's just one game, I feel like it's starting to peek through. Scott, next one up. 6 straight blowout losses if you count preseason. Well, the good news is I don't count preseason. Like, the preseason, well, I do think in week 1, some teams learned how valuable it is and other teams learned the hard way. There were a lot of bad quarterbacks in week 1. Deshaun Watson threw for 164 yards against the Cowboys. You would think 164 yards for all 32 quarterbacks in week 1 would be bottom 5. Guys, there were 11 guys worse. He wasn't even bottom 10. I think a lot of teams have taken this mindset of, we're not going to play our starters in the preseason. We don't want to risk injuries. And I get that. But you know what also has to be factored into the equation? Risking a slow, rusty start. And that was on full display for a lot of teams week 1. Like, it was not a great offensive showing league-wide in week 1. I think Tua and Jared Goff or Stafford were the only guys that went over 300 yards in week 1. And this is pre-Monday Night Football, so maybe Brock Purdy or Aaron Rodgers sneak in. So Now, I know that we're kind of going off subject for what you said, Scott, but like including preseason, I don't value preseason wins and losses much, but I do think starters should play in the preseason, and I think a lot of teams learned that in week 1 this year. Dallas, I think we should target Jalen Milroe in the 2025 draft. Thoughts? I'm not super high on Jalen Milroe as an NFL quarterback prospect. I think he's a really fun and exciting college quarterback. I do have concerns about going after a decent run-first quarterback, or a run-heavy quarterback, I should say, when with Watson, you're kind of living and dying by him and his legs extending plays and taking a lot of sacks. I could see Milroe falling into a similar trap. And if the Browns go after a quarterback I don't know if Jalen Milroe is going to be a first-round pick, but if they go after a quarterback in the upcoming draft early on, let's say, I don't think they're going to want a quarterback that's similar in style to Deshaun Watson. Like, if they're drafting a quarterback early on, it's probably to get away from Deshaun Watson, not go find the Alabama version of Deshaun Watson. Victor Simon, next one up, and the final one for today's show. Would you consider putting in a small package for Winston? Not for him to start, but to send a message. And not week 2, but if Watson continues to look bad in weeks 5 through 6. No, I see what you're getting at here, Victor. I don't think this accomplishes anything from a wins and losses standpoint. I think this accomplishes we're going to play this like high school-y chess match with Deshaun Watson to kind of dangle in front of him the backup that could start if he doesn't get it together. Don't do that with the other guys battling their asses off. Like, pick the best quarterback. If you think at that point, not just for week 2, but in weeks 5 through 6, that Jameis is better, then go put in Jameis. But don't play this like, let's hedge our bets and like put in Jameis for a little bit, because Jameis doesn't have a package. Like, I don't think there's anything Jameis is better at than Deshaun Watson. Like, when it comes to unique skill sets, right? They both have really strong arms, and Jameis finds himself in trouble, if not just as often as Watson, if not more. He takes a lot of sacks, and he throws way more interceptions. He threw 30 picks and 30 interceptions and 30 touchdowns. So there's not like a mobility element to Winston's game that you can install for the red zone that you see other teams do. So I'm not interested in playing a send a message game to Watson. This is the NFL. You get 17 cracks at it. I don't want to waste a couple of games or snaps or plays to play high school with Watson to send a message. Now, who you got for this upcoming Sunday? Browns or Jags? Let me know in the comment section below. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Drop a CLE if you're not giving up on the Brownies.